Gap trading. When we look at gaps, one of the primary things we look at is whether it was a professional gap or whether it was a novice gap. So let's take a look at these and what the definition. There are many names given to these types of gaps. However, they all fall into one of those two categories. The professional gaps, they have the potential to change the direction of prices by gapping against the current trend. These are referred to as breakaway gaps. These type of gaps can also occur in the direction of the longer-term trend, but after a correction with that trend. These are referred to as continuation gaps. In short definition, professional gaps are the type that we go with. Novice gaps, on the other hand, they're gaps that have the potential to end the direction of prices by gapping with the current direction. They're often referred to as exhaustion gaps and may be preceded by a wide range bar. So novice gaps, short definition, are the type to fade or go against or exit a position or stay away from. And a very simple way of looking at these, look at these figures where there is a consolidation and a red bar here that's coming into the declining 20 MA if I put it together, and then it gaps below the base. That's a professional gap. Clearly we can see that this is something that we're going to want to go with since it's in the direction of the trend and is gapping under support. This example of a novice gap is one in which it was in a downtrend. It's been going down for a period of time. Notice the wide range bar that suggests the end of the move, and then it gaps lower on a continuation to the downside, which is considered novice after falling this far already. This is a very simple concept once you understand it, and you can see it quite easily. But let's go through a few examples. Now, here's a professional gap. An example just like on the preceding slide where there was a consolidation. This time it was a green bar, and then prices gap down below it. So while this is even a sizable gap, the implications here is that this is going to continue. An example of what we would look for in the morning and then look at the intraday time frame to sell short, looking for prices to move lower. Now this is a long consolidation. While I don't have this one marked, this is also a professional type of gap because of the consolidation and the inability to move higher. Notice the large green bar right here, that there was no follow through. Notice the attempt to move higher here after retesting this bottoming tail bar and the inability to move higher. All of this suggesting that institutional supply keeps coming into this stock. This gap, that's a very large gap, and while this was after a consolidation, it has been going down for quite a while. It's moved down from about the $10 area all the way down to the $7 area and on a very large gap. This is considered a novice gap. Here is a professional gap coming out of a consolidation, and notice the red candle suggesting a continuation of the move lower, and then the gap above the consolidation. It's a very powerful concept for this type of a consolidation, the red candle at the end, and then the gap that clears all of that resistance. To review some of the concepts from the course, and for some of you that are taking this as a standalone, this swing low here in the area of this consolidation, which is support, and then there's a retest. This gap down suggested a move lower, but it didn't follow through, and the retracement back up was bullish. And that was followed by a rally, and here's a gap up and then a wide range bar, and then this gap up was considered to be novice because it had been rallying from this low on a continuous basis without any pullback, and then the gap higher. And notice the volume. And while we don't know that this volume is going to be this big at the moment of the gap, looking at it after the end of the day and seeing that, it strongly suggests that prices are going to pull back. Here's a professional gap. Now, as it says, it's not unusual for prices to retrace all the way back to support when gapping out of a base. This type of a consolidation where it's building support after a downtrend, there's still a lot of traders or funds holding losses and very happy to get out of this position on the gap up. So while considered professional, coming out of a base, it's often followed by a retracement back into this area, and that sets up a great swing entry point once prices stabilize. And looking at a little bit of the details here, notice that prices trade under these lows here. Once it tried to retrace back up, it moved down and turned back higher again with this larger green bar. So we've got several days of consolidation or building a support area down here. And it's a great swing setup. You've had a change of trend from down to sideways, breaking this sideways trend and the back of the downtrend, and then a pullback into this support area with a nice pattern reversing back higher, looking for prices to push back up. Nice little buy setup here. Move up into the declining 200 MA, which is always going to be a reference point to pay attention to on the daily time frame. Here's a pro gap after a move down and a consolidation. There is a void which we're going to cover in the next chapter, and we would be looking at this in the morning on the gap up. This would just be one of the examples that would come up on our gap scan that would be looking at on an intraday basis, looking for prices to push higher. Now, looking at this chart, it isn't to suggest that we know from this pattern that prices will move up as much as they have, but the concepts that we're going to put together do suggest that there is the possibility of a move that can be very profitable. Now, on this move down, as you can see, prices had been moving down for a while. There was an attempt to stabilize near this tail here, and there was no follow through, and just prices continued to drop. Notice the wide range bar down here, suggesting the end of the move, and then the stabilization. So even though there was this 2-bar stabilization, it was still a novice gap to the downside. We would look for it to reverse back up again. Now this one here is an obvious one, as the prices have been pulling back, and it's a large gap into the area of minor support. That's an obvious novice gap. Let's look at the concept of a void.